is a film director who is going to be our special guest tonight, Yonatan Nir. And he has traveled with us on a special mission to share with us his film, The Central Link, The Story of Wilfred Israel. Now, aside from the publicity that you might have read, how many of you heard of Wilfred Israel? Raise your hand. You heard of him before the publicity. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3 people. 3 people. So we've all heard of Oskar Schindler. This one has saved 15 times more Jews. And he happens to be Jewish. And you're going to hear his story, this compelling story, in the documentary tonight. So he has made other documentaries, and I refer you to Yonatan's website. You're going to Google his name, Yonatan, then Nir, N-I-R, and you will see the list of things that he has created, and he is now working on a special documentary about PTSD and the people who have fought in the Israeli army, and it's going to be very, very important. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Yonatan to come. We're going to have a little bit of a compelling conversation. We haven't done one in person since before COVID, so let's see how this goes.
Every place has a story, and there are times when a place has more than just one. Sometimes only part of the story appears on the surface, while the rest is suppressed so as not to shake the foundation of the place. So too is the story of Kibbutz Hazorea, situated at the edge of the Jezreel Valley. The kibbutz founders were pioneers who immigrated to Palestine from Germany in the 1930s. They planted a pine forest on the bare hills surrounding the kibbutz in an attempt to replicate the European landscape they had left behind. And right in the middle of the kibbutz, they built a building and named it the Wilfred House, where deep in its cellar, they hid a secret.
So welcome to our first in-person compelling conversation since really before COVID. So it feels a little bit like we got to get used to it for a moment and to kind of switch gears. So first of all, let's just have a warm welcome to our guest. Please, let's hear it.
Thank you very much.
So we only have about 15 minutes, but luckily we have a movie that's going to fill in the details. So you have produced a lot of different films. Why did this particular subject attract you?
So I usually make films about the relationship between man and nature, and this film is totally different, but it was a film that I just couldn't resist. I was born in a kibbutz in the northern part of Israel. In the center of this kibbutz, ever since I remember myself, there was this big house names the Wilfred's house by the founders of the kibbutz, among them my grandparents. The house was built in the 40s, and nobody have told us who was Wilfred Israel that the house was named after. And only 10 years ago, I got a phone call from a friend from the kibbutz, and he said, I have to tell you an amazing story. The house, the Wilfred's house, is called after a man who saved 15 times more people than Oskar Schindler. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. How come we didn't know about it? How come the founders of the kibbutz never told us the real story about this man? They just told us that he was a good friend of the founders, but no more than that. And this man just gave me a book. On the back cover of the book, there was one sentence by Albert Einstein. Never in my life have I come in contact with a being so noble, as strong, and as selfless as Wilfred Israel. And then I knew that I have to find the answer. Who was this man? What was the connection to the kibbutz? and why nobody spoke about him for 70 years.
So that's kind of the mystery of the movie. We don't want to give away too much. But if you think about it, we go through life and there are statues or there are pictures of people who are very prominent. And we just walk by and we go, well, who is that person? And given enough time, it could be 5 years, could be 50 years, we're walking past history and we don't even know it. So when you ask, how could he grow up in a kibbutz and not even know who this was? Well, that's part of the answer, but perhaps there's a little bit more as well. You know, Wilfred Israel's story is unique. What do you think generated his courage to act? If people here were in the same situation, I want them to think, would they do something if they had the ability, or would they sit there in silence or fear or just save their own lives? What do you think motivated him to make a difference?
Wilfred Israel was a very unique individual. He was a mixture between many, many things. First of all, he was a very successful businessman. He owned one of the largest department stores in Berlin, in the center of Berlin, employed 2,500 employees. But he also had really strong connections in the Zionist organization and also with the British government. He was born in Britain, and because he was born in Britain, the business that he owned was registered and also insured in Britain. And because of that, the Nazis could not touch his business until 1939. So between 33 and 39, Wilfred Israel used his money and connections to save as many Jews as possible. Started with his own employees, about 700 of them.
In the movie, you say he paid them for 2 years, their full salary. Can you imagine that? He not only saved their lives, but he made sure that they had enough to start a new life. That was amazing.
Exactly.
But dig deeper. Why do you think he had, like, there were some people, a lot of people who could have done something and they didn't. Why do you think he did? What was it about his character?
I think he was motivated by values, basically. He believed in peace, he believed in equal rights, he was against racism from any kind. And he believed that you need to help the person that needs help, whomever it will be. And he saved the lives of thousands of people that he didn't know. And he could have left Germany anytime, in 33, in 34, in 35. He could leave Germany anytime, but he decided to stay and even come back after he left Germany. Come back in 1939 to take care of the last Kindertransport trains. He was the initiator of the Kindertransport operation, which was probably one of his biggest accomplishments in life.
How did he convince people to give up their children to go on the transport? Did you ever find that out?
So, yeah, if you want to get a little bit into details, so after Kristallnacht, which is yesterday, 84 years ago, or 2 days ago, 84 years ago, Wilfred Israel realized what's happening, and he knew what's going on. So he contacted his friend and his cousin, Lord Herbert Samuel, who was in Britain, and told him, this is going to get worse. We need to get out the children, even if it is without the families. But nobody in Britain could accept or could believe that that the women, the mothers will be able to, or will want, or will agree to part from the children. All the men, or most of the men after Kristallnacht, were in concentration camp, about 30,000 men. So it was a decision of the women, but nobody believed it in Britain. So a Quaker delegation came from England, especially to meet Wilfred Israel in Germany, in Berlin, And Wilfred Israel took them to the women organizations around Germany, and they could speak with the women, and the women said, yes, we are willing to give our children and put them on trains and hopefully see them one day. Most of them never saw them again.
Mm-mm. You know, we showed the film a couple days ago, and King David. Jay Poster is here. We want to thank Jay for arranging for that showing. It was fabulous. And we had some of the survivors there from our community. There were 2 who are still alive, who are at Kristallnacht. They were there.
I was in Berlin. I was 14 years old when the Kristallnacht happened.
Alex Kushel and Steve Nasser. And you might have seen the article in The Sun, the front page of The Sun. So thank you, Leslie, for publicizing that as well. What did you feel when you saw these people who were actually there at the same time as Wilfred, right? Who knows if they met him, but they were there, and it's like a mystical event, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, 2 days ago, I don't remember his name, but the one man, Alex, 99 years old, and he came and he sang El Maleh Rachamim, and it was like you could feel the energy in the air. You know, it was a very touching moment. I think we're all privileged to still know and meet people that were there and were, eyewitness to that terrible time. And our job is to continue to tell the story to the next generations. I'm going with this film sometimes in schools in Israel, speak about it, and really use the power of documentary to educate and to inspire, because the amazing thing about the story of Wilfred Israel, if some of you will see the film, is that he was a true inspiration. He was always hopeful. He always tried to find solutions in very difficult times. And to me, it's an honor to be here and to share this story with you.
So one last thought, unfortunately, we're seeing the rise of anti-Semitism rear its ugly head. And I always tell people, we got to be concerned, but it's not 1933. But some people feel it is. 1933, 1938, like we're on the verge of something. Do you see any connection in your film besides educating people about Wilfred Israel, but as kind of a cautionary tale for we as a Jewish community to speak up or fight anti-Semitism? Do you see a relationship at all in his heroism?
I think that Wilfred Israel was against any kind of racism. In the 30s and today, there is a rise of anti-Semitism, and in the 30s, of course, we are, the Jewish people were under persecution, but I think in general, Wilfred Israel and I myself as well, I'm just against any form of racism. If you judge someone else according to his belief or his color, the color of his skin or the color of his eyes, that's very, very wrong. Whomever is doing it today is doing a wrong thing, and we should, of course, be against it, always, against any kind of racism.
Well, thank you, Yonatan, for sharing this in this special format. And so I think everyone here is anxious to see the film and anxious to share in the Oneg Shabbat. So let's have a round of applause as we conclude this portion of it.
Every place has its story, and every place usually has more than just one. The stories change with the years and with the passing of time, affected by the burdens of those who tell them. They create the memories of the past, determine our identity in the present, and guide us into the future.